Hey guys, I'm Jim, joined today with Matt from Liberty Systems. We're doing a vendor spotlight and kind of behind the scenes on how we work with some of our vendor partners. Liberty Systems has been an awesome partner for us for many, many years. And today Matt is gonna actually go through like how this whole system works.
Yeah.
We use bulk nitrogen at all of our facilities. This is, I think, the biggest system that we have though.
Yeah.
We're at our Reno facility and we're gonna walk through how this works. How does it save us a bunch of money over bulk? Because we spend way too much money on bulk.
Yeah. And we go through the order of flow. So we start with a fixed speed compressor. It takes in our atmospheric air, compresses it about 125 PSI. And then from there,
the nitrogen is, or atmosphere is like 70% nitrogen, right?
The air that we breathe is 78% nitrogen.
So it's kind of free nitrogen everywhere.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, so all we're doing is just grabbing the free air that's there and then sucking it in a compressor, and it's a fixed speed compressor. So you think of like a supercharger, right? There's two screws in there, and that compresses the air. So these two screws are constantly running while it's loaded. But that's getting it to about 125 PSI. And then we're going into a compressed air tank, that large tank.
Yeah.
And that just helps with
like buffer tank.
Yeah, you can think of like a buffer tank. It gives the compressor a chance to take a break. So it's gonna bounce between a pressure set point, and that buffer tank help give it a break.
And as our demand changes, because there's a ton of variables.
Yep, exactly. And then out of the compressed air tank, it goes through a refrigerated air dryer. So at Liberty, what we do is we oversize these refrigerated air dryers, and we use a cycling type refrigerated air dryer. The reason we do that is if you tuck this system in the corner of a shop in the summer months, it gets really hot. Once you start getting to about 90 to 100 degree ambient temperature, you dramatically derate how much air you can dry. So understanding that we sell these systems all over the United States, Canada, and Mexico, we want to make sure that we have a standard system that's always drying that air too. Okay. So it's a little unique compared to others, but we want to make sure that we protect your investment.
Well, I was going to say in Nevada, we have no concept of humidity. It's incredibly dry. We use a lot of lotion. So our air dryers, they're putting out like a little trickle of water.
Yeah.
When we visit our Kentucky facility, it's like a river coming out of that. Like you're completely shocked and surprised at how much moisture is in the air. Absolutely critical to get all that moisture out of the air before it goes to the next steps, right?
One of the worst things for a generator is water and oil. Yeah. So we want to make sure that we have good drains, good filters when we're releasing all of that. Yeah. We have the first line of defense, 90% of the water it knocks out. And then it goes into an oil mist eliminator. So you're not going to see that in many of our competitors' systems. The reason we put it in is we try to learn from our mistakes, right? We've had a compressor dump oil, and we understand that cost and damage to the laser.
It dumps it into really expensive filters and then really expensive lasers.
So does it add more cost to the system? Absolutely. But we were talking about before, redundancy, building value into the system, and fail-safes. So
I always say, like, you're going to spend money. Yeah. Do you want to spend it now or do you want to spend it later? And usually if you can spend the money now, you don't have to spend it later, because adding protections like the mist separator, it prevents you from spending a bunch of money on optics and downtime and everything else. So.
So that's purely a fail-safe. It's designed to get hit with bulk oil, so there's big filters in there. Okay. So out of that, we're somewhat dry. We're not really that clean, so we go through a 4-stage filtration.
Yep. We all those little filters.
Yep. So we knock out the water, particulate, and vapor. Okay. So by the time we get out of those filters, we're somewhat dry. We're really clean at this point. So we want to send that into the nitrogen modules, start making nitrogen. So what we do is after it's dry, it goes into the bottom of the nitrogen modules. Okay. And in these modules, there's little beads. Okay. So if you think of like a sponge, it's porous.
Yeah.
A nitrogen molecule is bigger than an oxygen molecule. So under pressure, when we feed that bottom of the module, the oxygen beads get sucked into that sponge. Okay, it's called carbon molecular sieve, or CMS. Yeah. So under pressure, the oxygen gets sucked into these beads and the nitrogen passes by, right? And then we store that low pressure.
It's kind of like a water softener.
I guess,
Like where you have the beads and you put the salt in there to recharge the beads or whatever. But they also purge, like it sucks up the oxygen. Actually, it's doing it right now. Like, that was good. That was good timing.
So there's 2 columns. So I could back up. So one column is going to feed for 60 seconds, right? After 60 seconds, it's so saturated, it can't absorb oxygen anymore. So what we have to do is release that back to the atmosphere.
Yep.
So what you're going to hear is every 60 seconds, the column's purging and fluctuating back and forth.
Okay. And that way, like the beads don't really need to be changed like,
Yeah, so
for a
that's
long
why
time, like
that's
years,
why it's so
right?
critical to supply the beads with really clean,
Okay.
dry air. Because if you get those beads wet, think of like mud, right? Or like dirt. You get it wet and it turns to mud.
Yeah.
I can't absorb oxygen anymore. So that's why it's really critical. One thing that's unique about us is we use nitrogen modules versus twin towers. Basically what that means is we can pack our sieve, that carbon molecular sieve, a lot tighter,
Okay.
right? So when air hits the bottom, we want to be able to absorb all that oxygen. If you have a loose fill, think of like air channels that can happen, right? And also if that's a loose fill, think about every 60 seconds, 120 PSI, slamming that sieve up against the top and coming back down.
Okay.
If I have a loose
smash
fill,
it up.
yeah, think of like a bag of potato chips, right?
Yep.
They're full-size chips, and you crunch that bag, and now you have dust.
Yeah.
Same thing with those beads. Once it turns to dust, I can't absorb oxygen. So in like twin tower systems, you might get 3, 5, maybe 7-year lifespan. You're going to go over 15-year lifespan with our modules, just because we pack that sieve so tight.
That's what we've noticed. I mean, we've been running your systems incredibly hard, 24 hours a day for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And we've never had to repack those things or whatever.
And you guys are also great on doing your maintenance.
We're really good at maintenance. Shout out to our entire maintenance team. But like I said, you're going to spend money no matter what. You can either spend it the right way, or you can spend it the very, very painful way much later during like emergency teardowns, and then you have downtime and all this other stuff. So just buy the good shit.
Yeah. So after we have the stored nitrogen, good purity.
Okay, so it's been compressed, it's been chilled, it's been filtered, and then we get the oxygen out of the equation.
Yep, get the oxygen. Yep.
Then we're putting it. We're putting it in the booster, right?
Oh, not yet. So we don't want to just go from the nitrogen module to the booster, so we're going to suck all that volume out of the nitrogen modules too quick.
Okay.
So what we want to have is a good stable purity. So in those tanks, we have about 100 psi of your 99.5% purity of nitrogen.
Okay.
And we can go any purity you want. It's just based on what you're cutting, those fit your needs.
Okay, yeah, actually, so that's when you order a system from these guys, they're going to figure out like, hey, are you medical, or are you, aerospace?
Yeah, aerospace.
Or do you have to have 5 nines of purity or whatever? In our case, we kind of shoot for the general, whatever tolerance. The lower the purity, like the more volume you can get, right? Is that kind of true? Or am I just making
kind of. Like, so for instance, in just one nitrogen module, if I lower the purity, I can get more flow out of it. Right? But there's also like a counter effect to that too. I might need more compressed air, right? So yeah, you can tweak it a little bit.
Yeah, and then it's going to affect your edge quality. Like, well, this is a piece of stainless that I have, but it's damn smooth.
Yeah.
Check that out, Logan. Good luck editing that. As you lower purity, your edge is going to start to color. You're going to get like a straw gold or a brown or purple or whatever if your purity is low. But if you buy a system like this that can constantly purge and whatever, so you can end up having like 99.5 with
I would
a
say
decent flow rate.
They're all going to have decent flow rate, exactly what you guys need. But it really comes down to your needs. So like when I'm first talking to an owner like you, I want to know like, are you welding after you cut? Are you painting? So why would I buy this really big high purity nitrogen generator if I'm just welding over that cut, right? So who cares if it's shiny silver anymore? Now if I have a perforated hole that's showing on my finished piece, maybe.
Yeah, so, I will say on welding, sometimes if you spend a little bit more money on the purity, it makes your pre-weld processing much, much faster too. So, because actually a lot of our customers will write in and be like, dude, I didn't have to do anything. I just welded it and it was perfect. Like, they didn't even have to hit it with a grinder. And that's at 99.5.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay.
Yeah. So after we separate the oxygen from the nitrogen, store it in that tank, we have good volume, steady purity. Then it goes into a booster compressor. And we like to use piston-style boosters. Yep. It's more efficient at higher pressures. In the industry, you got oil-free versus oil-injected. It's like, do we use oil, do we not? We want to protect the laser. When Liberty first started, we did oil-free, because that's the first thing that we thought. We're diving into the laser industry for generators. We don't want any oil. What we found is that these oil-free boosters are very costly to maintain.
They are.
You have to rebuild the whole entire pistons. There's piston rings that you have to put on them.
Yep. When they go down, they go down hard.
Yeah, they go down, so it's labor intense. It's very expensive. So what we found is, okay, lubrication's having lubrication's much better, but you have to filter it out. Yep. So any of the filters that we have, Jim, they're all very, very high efficiency filters. So if you think of like, if you go get a filter from a Home Depot, it's gonna be low efficiency. And if you just think of like the filter like a fence, it's just more tightly woven, so I can stop more particulates, right? So after the booster takes that 100 PSI of nitrogen, it builds it up to about 400 to 430 PSI.
Which is what we need to use in the lasers.
Yeah, I would say most lasers, pressures are starting to come down, but what I've always seen is if we stay 400 PSI at the end of the laser, we're good. So we just don't want to fall below that. So that booster is going to operate around 400 PSI to 430 PSI, right? So if the booster fills up to that high pressure tank, 430 PSI, your lasers are pulling, that pressure drops down to 400, booster turns back on. So the booster doesn't hold pressure, it just builds pressure.
Yeah, it's not running all the time. And you will notice when it's running, that's probably the loudest part of the entire system. The main, like the Kaiser compressors are super quiet. They're great. They put out a ton of heat though, like comical amount of heat. So you want to make sure they're ducted really well. Noise isn't really a big issue. We've had these systems in 5 different buildings now, 6 different buildings. But we knew from day one, the first thing that we wanted to mitigate is noise. Like we run a pretty clean shop, pretty quiet. We don't like to have ear pro all the time.
Clean,
So one of the first things that we did is dedicate a room to it. Like even though it was a small system, we dedicated a room. And the main reason to do that was to duct out all the heat and then also to keep the noise of the booster pump down a little bit. So that was another thing that I was going to say to anyone watching this who's considering, Liberty Systems. You do need some square footage. And like if you get the CAD model for all these things, you can jam them together and you're like, oh man, I can fit it in a 10 by 10 room. You have to remember maintenance. And the maintenance guys will lose their mind if they can't, some of the maintenance guys are bigger too. So they can't squish through, really tight stuff. You have to take panels off, you have to take doors off. So consider the square footage. That was one of our challenges.
Well, that's one thing too. Like all the sales engineers at Liberty Systems know how to use CAD. We work with our engineering team. I actually like using CAD. So it's fun for me to play Tetris is what I call it. So you tell me your square foot that you have and I'm going to try to move it around or say, hey, Jim, we need a little more space.
I think, well, Matt's not going to want me to say this, but I think we're a little tighter than their recommendations just because we had some constraints, but it still works. You can take every panel off. You have access to everywhere. You can get a big wrench in for the hose. You can change oil. I will tell you the first system that we built, we realized we couldn't change the oil at one point.
Oh, you can open the door?
Yeah, so we had to get some forklifts involved. So yeah, space is a consideration, heat is a consideration, but it's just pencil it in as part of the system. Just work with your HVAC guy to build some ducts. At one of our shops, we had a duct, actually on this one too, we can either duct to atmosphere or we can duct to heating in the winter.
Well, I mean, that's really smart. So, like you said, it is that they produce a lot of heat, a little bit of air, but that's the technology we have to make, compressed air. So if you have all that heat, why not during the summer the winter, bring it back into your building and save on your energy bill? Yeah,
Texas, I think it just goes outside all the time. It's always hot in Texas. Holy crap. What else do we need to know about this?
I would just say, like you talked about space, but it's nice because I can still open up the doors and just think about like the system being able to breathe, right? We don't want this system to get too hot. So I always say if you can stay between 45 degrees Fahrenheit to 110 degrees, stay in that optimal range. But at Liberty, what we would do is work with you, right? Do we need more vents in the walls? So there's a lot of times I help customers build these rooms too. Now we're not doing the subcontracting, but I'll help lay out the spacing.
It's more than the equipment, it's the entire ecosystem. It's the room, it's the environment, it's everything. Like you said, the system does breathe. If you think about all of this air that we're pulling from atmosphere, it has to come in to the building too. So sometimes you need an inlet and an outlet, and people don't think about that. Sometimes you need like a 4 foot by 4 foot, inlet just to feed, how much is coming in. And then sometimes you need to condition the facility.
So let's just say it is too hot. You might need to do some type of AC unit or big fans, like you guys have industrial fans.
So like we're in Nevada. Our summers will get 100, 105. We've never had any problems with this room, and it's because we did really smart ducting with the big compressors, and then we're just pumping a lot of air through this building all the time. We will rarely get an over temp alarm.
And then so we talked about spacing, and then I just really want to hit it again, redundancy. I just try to say that to everyone. Our standard compressed air tanks now come with 2 inlets. So we understand redundancy is so important that either you get a backup compressor from us or you tie in your shop air, but no matter what, if you ever see a system from us and you see 2 inlets at the compressed air tank, that means we want you guys to supply more air to it.
And that's what we do. So we have our main compressor that's doing the bulk of the work, but if we need to take that offline, there's a couple valves that we can turn. Because we also have another what, 200 horsepower of compression in the building that we can tie into.
Yeah.
This thing we can turn on if we need to. Like,
yeah, you have so much equipment.
Backups on backups.
Yeah. But, and you'll see valves throughout the whole system. I know it might look a little crazy, but I come from the service side too, and it's so much easier to work on a piece of equipment to be able to isolate that specific component and work on it, rather than having to drain the whole entire system, build it back to purity. So if you see our systems and there's valves all over the place, there's a reason for it. It's so that we can get you up and running quicker, or do maintenance faster, help troubleshoot, things like that.
So like in the old days when we were a smaller shop, when we only had 2 lasers, we would usually be able to shut down the system and then just run on a 450 liter dewar.
Yeah.
You know, and when we didn't even have like the big bulk tanks or whatever, we'd just run on a dewar for a little bit, a few hours or whatever to do maintenance, fire it back up. We had no downtime. The laser operators, usually our goal is so that they never know when we're doing maintenance. They should just be able to do their job.
I guess one last thing that's really nice about these nitrogen modules too is, let's just say you knew you were going to have this growth from the beginning, right? We can size these systems for future expansion. So if you came to me and you said, hey Matt, I'm getting 2 lasers today, but I know I'm going to buy 2 to 3 more in the next 5 years. We can size the system for future expansion. We would oversize the air compressor, the booster, all of the other components, but the nitrogen modules are just going to produce enough nitrogen for those 2 lasers. In the future, you add another laser, you can just drop in another nitrogen module and a buffer tank. And another one for however big we made it.
Well, I was going to say, we've upgraded this system a couple times now, but that's our old buffer tank, right? Yeah, we never got a new one from you guys. We also have another buffer tank over there that we've used forever. So it is modular, and you guys are really smart. You know, as the years go by, as demand changes, as technology changes, you know, you look at it holistically and you're like, hey, keep this. We're going to replace that, and saves some money over the long run. Anyway, thank you for watching Behind the Scenes with one of our preferred partners, Liberty Systems. If you have any other questions, hit up Matt.